model to give back to my community.
It's reasonable. Next question from Terry. I'm not missing you, Lou. I'll get to it. But I want to follow in this vein. What type of data are you guys focusing on, or is it specifically notice of sale, or do you increase it all the way out to notice of default?
Well, here in Arizona, we just get notice of sales. Very different from California, but in reality, it's kind of very similar. You guys just have a two-step situation, a notice of default and then a notice of sale, where we just have a notice of sale, which is always in 90 days before the foreclosure date is actually, it's scheduled on the notice of sale 90 days out.
Okay, there you go. So with that, if you had if you had the option of including, say, from the initial default filing period, were you in another state or understanding how that works, or the list pendants that they have on the East Coast, would you consider, do you have a problem starting the process earlier? Do you think it would make any difference to start it when they were, say, 3 to 6 months default?
No, I think that I would love it if I could get plugged in then and start the process. By the time the notice of sale gets filed, you've got every, Tom, Dick, and Harry coming out of the woodwork,
Yeah.
approaching the homeowner. So we are always up against, why are we different, and we have to overcome that a little bit, because by the time I get in front of them, and we're on top of these foreclosures like really fast. The minute they're, every week the new ones that come in, which I wish there were more, but they're not at this point, but every time they come in, we jump on those so fast. We're out there tagging, so we try to, so if there's, for those of you that get a little jump start on that, that's a perfect time to get in there and start building a relationship with them and see what you can do to help them.
Next question from Lou. Is there anything different in your package, say, from everybody else's, or are you still sticking to a fairly basic first impression delivery package?
Well, I always make a copy of their tax record that shows their foreclosure date, and I kind of use that as my opener. And I've got the foreclosure date highlighted. I've got the status, which shows pending, which says that thing's ready to go. It's scheduled. And then I also highlight the trustee who's been hired by the lender to do the auction. And I highlight those in yellow, and then I circle them in red, and I explain to them that, this information is public knowledge. And once it gets out to the universe like it does, that's why you're getting all the people approaching you. And so I explain that. That's my first thing that I explain. Of course, my first thing is I introduce myself and say who I am and what our organization does. And then I go right into, we may have a little bit of free flow conversation, and then at the appropriate times when I go through the packet, and I start off with the tax record and show when their foreclosure is scheduled, blah, blah, blah. And then the first thing is that I show them is the intro letter that just explains what we offer and what we can do to help them. I have the truth about the loan modification approval in there, and explain this is really important information so you know what your expectations are of the process of going through a loan mod. Then I talk to them about the scams that are out there, and I explain to them that I meet people every day that have been taken financially by opportunistic companies that offer to do loan mods for them for a fee. And I just always tell them, if they're asking you for money up front and you haven't gotten what you need to get, then you need to run. But the most important thing I talk to them about is the alternatives to foreclosure. And I do this just like David has explained in the seminars up in Vegas. I go through every single option with them, and usually tell them that we start with a loan modification. And if the wheels come off on that, we do have other options, and I just kind of briefly go over it. But I say this flyer right here is really designed to help you understand all the options you have to stop your foreclosure. And I'm here to help you through that, whether it's coaching you from the sideline just to make sure that you don't fall into a crack, and that I help, just help you get the biggest advantage, hopefully, of retaining your home if that's what you want to do.
I have to ask, because you of all people may have tried this. I know Diane has done it. Have you tried alternative data beyond the world of defaulted homeowners?
I did try some stuff, and I think it was, I'm trying to think which company it was, but the information that I got was just not beneficial for me, and I found that some of the information wasn't updated quite enough, so I was coming to doors thinking I knew what their situation was, and that was not the case. So
it ultimately just comes down to the data behind it. Like, I've said this, I find it hard to believe that the monster would fail in any situation except the data itself. And in the breakdowns always seem to be one of three locations: either the data, the tag, whether or not the tag stayed up. And I know this specifically with Arizona, having tried to tag in the rain. Like, those repealable labels do not hold up well in heavier conditions. Have you tried having, do you tag, I should say this, is Al tagging, or are you hiring a tagger?
Well, we've tried both, and, actually Al is doing that. We do it incognito.
Is he completely brazen as I am about his tagging?
Well, until he got sick a couple of years ago, and he's got a little hitch in his get along now.
It's good exercise for him. Tell him to get back on that horse.
Yes, but if we see somebody outside hanging, now we're not as brazen as you are, and just walk up and hand him.
Kevin's crazy. Yeah, he'll just hand it to him, and then meet with him later on.
And honestly, when I show up at the door on a drop, when I say drop, when I've had an appointment and stuff, I dress professionally, but not overdress. It's I don't walk up there in a suit and skirt and high heels and all that. I usually am wearing some nice pants and a nice top or whatever, but I don't try to overdress, but I dress nice, okay? And when we're out there tagging, I'm in gym clothes, a baseball hat, sunglasses, and my hair in a ponytail. So I'm hoping I look a little different.
That's fantastic. Okay, let me break these down point by point, because I'm sure everybody would like this one time and they can go back and listen to the replay of this multiple times. Okay, step one, picking the data. You're saying don't get hung up on the data. If they are defaulted anywhere in the default process, just go and tag them.
Absolutely.
All right. Step two, and this is a good question about step two. Are you using repealable labels, or are you using permanent with the Lee/David, put a little bit of lint on the back of a traditional Avery label?
No, I'm using the peel off labels.
You're in the Diana camp. I like that.
And I order them on Amazon. They're pretty cheap that way. Most like Staples and places like that don't carry those labels because they probably don't sell enough of it. So I just order a bunch of them, now and then off of Amazon. But I like the peelable ones, and honestly, I think you run the risk of people getting really ticked off at that stuff. We all know what it's like to get those labels that you have to go out there with a razor blade and gooby gun. It's not fun. Yes.
But David, have you gone to repealable, or are you still like me? I prefer permanent. I know that this is a finite thing, but your label has to be on the house for this system to work. I still kind of prefer the permanent with a little bit of lint. I think it just has a little bit more stick to it. Any input from you? Are you using?
That's what we use, because I hadn't even considered another option. I'm just the process guy. This is how we've always done it, and it works fine. So I haven't looked for an alternative.
And if you've never seen David or I live on the topic, we do
And I have no idea what you're talking about right now, this alternative label. So now I'm gonna have to investigate. Thanks.
That's so funny.
Something else to do today.
So for those of you who don't understand, David and I are long-standing use permanent labels, but put it on your pant leg and get a little bit of lint. Has a little more stick, in my opinion, than say your label has to be like your delivery label has to be on the property. This system will not work unless it's on there. Step 4, Mary Ann, I think you're a central communications girl, correct?
Yes.
And are you still using the baseline traditional script, or have you tweaked it at all?
I actually went over to David's script, and that's been working pretty well. The one that I used before, it was your version, but kind of tweaked a little bit. And when I was showing up at the door, they were saying, "Oh gosh, I thought you were from the bank or the lender." And sometimes that doesn't set well with them. They think, okay, maybe I've been bait and switched just now. But the one that David has used has been pretty good, and they kind of have an idea that I'm going to be out there talking to them about alternatives to stop foreclosure.
Awesome.
Now, Mary, have you started using the new one that we wrote last week?
What?
No, I haven't. And
we're working on some stuff we're going to introduce in March after Mary Ann tests it.
What? And I'm also going to be testing with Kevin, just so everybody knows, I'm going to be testing the call script of, "Hi, I represent an investor." So you can blind tag teardowns, blind tag expireds, and I think the call center response is going to be, because I keep driving around and looking at perfect investment opportunities for David's investors, AKA through Lee. And I'm going to do a blind call center of, we have a representative who would like to make an offer to purchase your house. Are you interested in that? So we're going to be testing that out on our end as well. We're moving on to step number 5, Mary Ann. Are you still a FedEx colored traditional girl in picking your monsters, or do you change them up?
I tried changing them up, and it didn't seem to make much difference. And I like the FedEx because it's pretty.
Well, okay. That is one reason to pick it. So you're saying there's not a drop-off between the FedEx colored one, the UPS colored one, or even the generic, what I call the registered pink one. You see no discernible difference between any of those products?
Not really, and it's just easier for me to manage it from here, not having to print all these different colored labels out. And the important thing is that we tag 3 and 4 times, and sometimes as long as if they keep getting foreclosures kind of pushed out, we still keep tagging them.
I agree. I completely agree with that. And how are you doing it? Are you printing out one I'll go into finite detail because I had to do this the other day. Printing out one master, going down to Office Depot, and then printing out, copying directly onto your labels and doing them in bulk?
Yeah, I do them in bulk, and I handwrite in red Sharpie the name and the APN number, the parcel number on the tags. I handwrite that in.
Perfect. Which takes us to step 5. What are you using currently as your mapping software? Because I currently hate the new alternative. But we all know that RootFast recently went away, the way of the dodo. What are you using to map out your process?
We use a Garmin GPS.
Oh, that's right. You were talking about the Garmin, right?
Yeah, and what's cool about Garmin is they have a interface to your computer where you plug in all the addresses, then you hit optimize the route, and it puts them in a logical order, and then you download it into the Garmin, and you turn that puppy on, and it talks you through from one address to the next. It's really easy. The Garmin that